My name is Pavel Wolf. I was born May 13, 1930 in Leova, Romania, which today is Moldova. And I left Moldova or Romania in 1940 after the invasion of the Russian army.
Okay. Could you tell us about your parents?
Well, my father's name was Anton. Mother was Maria Elizabeth. I had 3 other brothers and 1 sister, and then, no, actually 4 brothers. 1 passed away.
What were their names?
One was Adolf, the other one was Willie, and the third was Albert, and I'm Pavel. And the girl was Ida Erna, and the last boy was Ewald.
Okay. So could you tell us maybe about your childhood growing up in Leova?
Yeah, I can. It's just a matter of remembering where to start. We played a certain kind of baseball. I do not remember the rules, but I remember that we were hitting the ball and running from one base to the next and running around. This continued somewhat once the Russian came, but there was always a Russian guard that was watching us. We were not allowed 2 players to stand on the side and talk. The Russian soldier were right away coming and standing behind us or between us. So he always wanted to know what was going on. I remember parents sent us to have a shower every week. Actually, it was every Friday. And we were recorded. I remember the lady that was recorded, which was not always, but most of the time it was the same one. And we were all 4 standing, all 4 brothers standing in line, like Joseph's brother. And of course I was the youngest, and I got the most attention, of course. So I got 5 portions instead of 1 like the others. We had our showers and also the sauna. So I do not remember how much time was that we remained in, but we were just inside, and was men separate from the ladies. It was two different buildings. Also the school, every Wednesday the school took us to have a shower. Every class went to a different hour, but always on Wednesday. It was the same day. So in that regard we were required to be clean and keep ourselves washed. At the showers there were sponges and soap, so we washed. And the teacher he did not took a shower, but all the children took a shower, the students. And he was bringing up that each one had to wash each other's back and rubbing with the sponge and the soap. So that was the area where we could not reach accurately.
Could you actually, maybe we can step back and maybe you can tell us about your home?
A home, well, we had 2 houses. One was the big one, the other one was the small ones, and then we had rental, and then we had big one was separate entrance, was the same building than the big home or the large home, but it was a big room. I cannot say not how big, but it because we had all kind of storage. It was sometimes rented out for storage. Even I remember there was that was during Romanian time. A policeman was renting that room, and then when he moved away, another policeman came and he continued to rent it. So And during those times, we had no problems. Nobody stole anything from us, because he knowing that a policeman signed the police uniform, and so we had some kind of protection. Though I had excellent memories of the policemen themselves. They were playing with us, ball game. We were children, they were grown-ups, but they were playing with us, treating us always the most kind, brought us cookies, which, you know, as children, cookies, you always go for it. And so, school time, you want to hear?
Well,
ask question.
I do, but maybe first we can talk about your father. What did your father do for a profession?
Oh, my father, yeah, I'm sorry. Well, we had the tow bridge. That was, they were three partners, my father and two others. They were associates. And of course, crossing the bridge one side or the other, and the bridge was on a pulley tied to a cable. So when all the boats could pass under the cable, what I say now, under the cable, and then they had to pull down occasionally the chimney of the boat, so that was somewhat too high. Though the big boats, then they lowered the cable into the river. Totally, it wasn't always. So that was the arrangement. I was, as a kid, sometimes I was there, sometimes not. Of course, I just moved and walked around. And I recall that sometimes I was sitting there, and they put me to sit there for safety, and I was playing the cashier. People were coming with their wagon, with horses, or just pedestrians, and they were crossing, and I was told how many lays to ask or to tell, and they were paying me, and I was playing the big shot there. Swimming, we learned swimming almost as soon as we started walking, because it was at the river. Summertimes we were always at the river, playing, swimming. Winter times, there, of course, everything was frozen, so we had to be very careful. But because toward the center, the ice was not strong enough, so parents reprimanded us if we went too far on the ice. So for our safety. If father had how is it called, a clothing materials store.
Haberdashery?
No.
Men's clothing?
Men's clothing, but
material.
Yeah, material. But there were men that work in his store that were doing the suits, the pants, the shirts, and so on. He was doing also, but how much he was doing, I do not know. But I know, I remember I went to the store and just hanging around there after school, and several men, some ladies also. I think two ladies that I recall. They were doing more the ladies stuff or shirts, but the men, they were doing the suits.
So your father sold the material?
Tailoring also? Were they tailors?
Tailor, yes, yeah. Okay. They had sewing machines, but all this was still, with the pedal sewing machines. Yes, the old
style.
They were the singer. Their name was singers, but the old style kind. Yeah, so he had that.
What do you remember about your mother?
Mother, she was more at home. She was, we had two maids always, as far as I can, because even they gave me a bath when I was a little one. The brothers, and the brothers did not want, they wanted to take their baths on their own. And the maids didn't care either way, so. But the maids were working in the house, though I remember they were also working in the fields when the demand was there. Otherwise, the men were hired for the planting time or harvest time, or so. Then there were more men that were working for us.
So you had a farm as well?
Yes, yeah, we had a farm, and that was main employment for the people that were hired. Then, of course, was the mill, And there also there were men that was handling the mill, but father was always there. I remember he was there sitting with the people that came and having their wheat or mice grinded. But there were men that were handling all the milling. And I was also standing on the top and looking, and because each time when it was getting low, each individual brought their sacks of grain and then poured it in, and when that sack came to the end, another one poured in his sack. And I do not know what the division was made, but it was always so that one was the top at a certain time and was for the next in line. So that, but then when the Russian came, everything was closed. The store was closed, the mill was closed.
Okay. Is there more that you want to tell us about going to school, Leo?
Well, yes, I went 3 years at Romanian school. This was the language. I spoke the Romanian, Bulgarian, Moldovan. That was, it's not total Romanian, but I was speaking because everybody else speaking the Yiddish at home. Russian I was speaking because my cousins, that was my mother's sister, they were speaking Russian at home because the father was he was a Russian. And so, but between the cousins we were talking Romanian, of course. Though otherwise I spoke reasonably Russian, not fluent but reasonably, I should say, because I could understand everything and responding and talking. But I never went to school in Russian because when the Russian came, there were no no Russian teachers, so there was no school. So, and then we left, of course. I cannot remember the month when we left, maybe in August, I think September, because the rainy season was starting, and father said that they went down to Galas all under the rain. It was raining day and night. Now, school itself.
What did you learn? What were the classes?
So first, second, and third grade. I finished the third grade. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever goes on in the 3 grades.
Well, what were they teaching you? Romanian, of course.
Yeah.
History.
History. The first year, I don't think we learned much of history, but was the counting, mathematics, and reading. That was the main, because all the homework that we received was always read this chapter, read this page, and was given the numbers. Because we had books from the first grade, we had books and so on. And the books were always changed because I could not use my brother's books because my books were different from theirs when they were in the first or second grade, etc. So in my books they had also more color pictures already than their books. So probably improvement or some changes. And the stories were changed also and so on.
So they had new books when you got there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then second, then there was history and geography and so on, because I remember the teacher spread out a map, and he was coming, bringing one student after the other up to the front there, and he was naming a city, and he asked me, "What is that city?" So the student had to show what a city is. Mm-hmm. And some we know and some we did not, so the teacher helped us, because some important cities we knew better than others. And those that were closer by in Moldova, we knew what knowledge of them more than farther away, of course, beside the capital and whatnot.
What about religious life in Leova? Your parents, your mother was Jewish.
Yes.
Your father was half Jewish.
Yeah, he never disclosed what he was, but in reality that's what he was. All his friends were Jewish. All his occupation was Jewish, all his doings, his observation was Jewish. Though we as children, he never enforced anything on us. Never. He went away and we stayed at home, always. We went.
He went where? He went to synagogue?
A synagogue or seeing his friends. He didn't disclose, but he went away half a day or more, depending when he come. Or he brought friends, and then they sitting outside and talking for half a day or into the night sometimes. But we were children, so we had no direct part in it.
What about your mother?
Well, she was more at home. Occasionally she went with him. Occasionally they went both. Father, I know he always had his white hat. Mother, she had her her shawl. Was called
white hat or white hat?
Black hat.
Black hat.
No white, no hat. No.
Black hat.
Black.
I thought I heard you say white.
No, and mother she had her shawl. It's called the shawl. To cover the head. And they took off, and nobody said or paid any attention, And so they said, "Behave yourself," and they were gone.
Okay.
Or we went swimming. That we also. Or we spent, but some friends. Jewish friends came to our place more than we went to theirs because we had more space. Probably we have gardens, fruit trees, and climbing and so on, and eating fruits when was time, or some even before there was time. So we spent, with friends together. And we had food. And parents left us food, and we took care of that.
Okay.
Did you ever go to a Passover Seder?
No, I never. Parents must have been, but we were not incorporated in or told or keep track of any kinds of that nature. No.
But did you keep kosher?
Keep kosher?
Yeah.
Not kosher, but it was called clean meat.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, of course, that everything that was chewing and had split hoofs.
Yeah.
And so, and fish they had skill. I forgot the name now.
But were you eating that way when you were living in Leova?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That was the only kind of fish that we were eating, with scales and the wings there. Not the slippery ones, no. We as children, we can say that we went fishing also. I didn't mention that, but as children, otherwise the grown-up needed a permit to fish, and father never bothered with that. But we as children, we had our hooks and so on, and then we had our nets, but we didn't never caught much of any valuable fish. So
There weren't many fish in the fruit?
there were, but we as children, we were much and jump in the water and out, and the fish there, they just swam away.
Can you tell us something about the market?
The
market in Leova.
The market was every Monday, as far as I remember. That was the grocery, fish market, and anything that had any value to be sold. But live animals was not on the same market. It was a market much farther to the east, I would say, from the regular market. That was every Monday. I don't remember even live chicken that were sold at that market, because there were rules, which I did not know. I just followed. But there were rules that they could not. There were certain items they could sell, and some other items not. And it was, not. There were police here and there watching what was going on. So there are no physical encounters and so on. I mean, that was taken care of right away. So the market, well, I can remember these two markets. One was much farther north, but there was big market. Was selling I do not know what, wagons and horses and cows and animals and most domestic animals, of course. Pigs, I have not seen pigs on the market because they are filthy. But pigs were sold. I think the owner was coming with a list of pigs that were for sale, and then whoever was interested went to the farmer and will buy the amount that he wanted. But no pigs brought to the market itself. Though I have seen cows and calves, but that was on the big market, not the vegetable market. No, not at all. No, that it was clean.
And when your parents bought, when your father bought a cow, he killed it himself, or?
No, my father, he was not. No, he could not stand that.
So
No.
he brought it someplace to be killed?
No, well, he hired.
He hired someone?
Yeah, he hired. So he hired. But he himself, he disappeared. Mother knew about, but everybody else was. Domnul Anton. I don't know. She said I don't know. She knew, of course. He took off. And then when it's ready, skinned and so on. Then he was able to have part. But otherwise he disappeared. I think whatever I do not know. He just disappeared.
What
Yeah.
about the chickens? Did your mother ever pluck chickens herself, or was it all
Well,
brought?
father never did that, though this was done. When I came along and brothers were there, and their mother was able to handle this because we needed several, whenever it was done. We had quite an amount of chicken. I do not know how many, and that was.
So you raised your own?
That's correct, yes, because there was space and the grain, and chicken just went into the garden and helping themselves and so on. That even I was sent to chase them out. But chicken, they just went back as soon as it was clear.
As soon as you left?
And also soon they left, yeah.
Okay. Do you have any more questions about the town?
Actually, were there wells? Where did people get
Oh
their
yeah,
water from?
okay. We had a well ourselves, and according to what mother said, that she said there were 16 families that were coming and getting water from our well, and it had to be almost the same bucket had to be used. The bucket was on a hook but was closed, but the bucket had a cross, a metal cross over, so that no animal could drink out of that bucket. So the bucket was only used to get the water out and then pour it whatever in a different bucket, or for if it animals. Yeah, the water must be plenty because for 16 families. She said 16 families. She didn't say 16 persons. So families were quite in size during those years. So.
That's interesting. Was it a financial arrangement, or it was just friendly
No,
companies?
that was no. Nobody give a tip on that one. No, not at all. It was all. That was the need. That was the sharing, and that was the law, unwritten law. There was a well. That's what it was, and whoever came. Because I remember we had a fence, but there was one area was made so that people could come over the fence, and just for that purpose, just come with their, because at that time there was no running water in the houses, so and people were coming with their buckets and coming over the fence. And this was all normal procedure. There was nothing. Nobody said anything.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I wanted to ask you I know you've been wanted to talk about when the Russians came, and in 1940, and maybe you can start out with the day that the Romanians were leaving.
Well, that was simple to me, but to somebody else probably not so. I remember the day before, mother and all the children and some other neighbors, we all went hiding into the forest.
Do you know what the date was? Do you remember the date?
I think it was in June. I think it was end of June, but then
1940?
correct.
Mm-hmm.
But the date maybe was June 30. But
Okay.
I can just describe how it happened, because
Okay.
this I can do because I can still visualize because I watched it doing it.
Mhm.
So ask me what you want me to talk about, and I can.
Well, talk about the day, and you said you went to the forest.
Yes, so there were
where?
many other families, and we were just, made shelter with blankets, etc. And so on. I was, of course, a youngster, and I remembered the day. It was maybe it was afternoon or what. I can see over the hills that Russian tanks all coming, all coming. The noise must have not been too far because we could hear the noise, though for talking that was, I mean, too far. Though we could see visually, and then all the tanks and trucks stopped suddenly. All stopped, and all turned their cannons toward the valley. And we were in the valley, in the woods. We were there. But I was not impressed. But mother said they're aiming at us. So be sure, do not go at the edge of the woods, because if they see, they might shoot. So as kids, we were just hiding behind the trees and watching them. So we did not come out of the woods. And that went on all that day. I say all that day. I'm sure during that afternoon. And then, of course, I fell asleep. I cannot recall the rest of it that day. But the next morning, when we woke up, the tanks and trucks, everything was still up there, just the way we left them in the evening. And then at noon, and then, the horns trumpets were blowing in Lyova from many directions. And this was the time, it was around noon, that Lyova had to be cleared. But Lyova was cleared already, people, those that wanted to leave, they were gone already. The army was gone because the army, Lyova was filled with army.
The Romanian army.
Correct. So they were gone. Only this was a sign of that at the trumpet sound, and there could see all the tanks were turning toward Lyova. Before they were aiming at us, but the Lyova was on our left. They turned and start running downhill into Lyova. So there, father, I do not know where he was. Anyway, he stayed at home when he came with us, and then he left us, and I'm sure he went home so that nobody will steal much of the stuff. So he did hang around at home. But then, because he spoke Russian like better than Romanian, because he did all his studies in Russian during his time. That was Moldova was Russian. And so he told us later that when the tanks and trucks came into Lyova, he also went into the center to see what's going on. And he said the order was given that all trucks stop. So everything became silent. And a Russian officer climbed on a truck and gave a speech and said, from now on, you are Russian, and you will follow the Russian rules and laws. And that's the order from our comrade. He said, Comrade Joseph Stalin. And I mean, that's what I remember. I'm sure he said more than that, but that's what I remember what was repeated at home. So yes, after the same day we walked back home, and but there were all Russian horses and military. It was filled like before was Romanian, and then was the uniform. Uh, the Russian they had caps. The Romanians they had they are different, also caps, but somewhat different. And Russian had somewhat the Greek style, but in the brown reddish. The Romanian were rather yellowish brown, yellowish rosy something. Then yeah, I mean, for myself, nothing changed. I have to admit. You know, we kept on playing, and there, just that we were watched by a soldier always. But according to parents, what they said that people were disappearing, and father said not all maybe, but quite a few of his friends were disappearing, and the Jews more than others. And Maraviu was a neighbor of my grandmother. Her house was between ours and Maraviu, and he disappeared. And nobody knew what happened to him, and many others disappeared.
Mario owned the brick factory.
That is correct. And they actually, what they created a panic in the city. Nobody spoke, nobody said, or whoever said something that was last time a statement he made, he disappeared, so that nothing could be repeated. And we children, we heard even less, because now I have to say, I have seen personal friends that were schoolmates, Jewish schoolmates. They went to Romania, and when the Romanian went, had to give up Lyova. I know them, a few. But when the Russian came, they came back. They came back. So I have seen them in the Romanian side, and I see them when the Russian was there. But then there was I heard it, I do not know how it was, that it was told that the boundaries or the borders, the frontier, how you say it?
Yeah, the
border were open, they were still open in Galatz, or in that vicinity. And whoever wants to go can go. But everybody was so afraid that, you say you want to go, say, why you want to go? And people were disappearing, they were so afraid. And some did try, and it succeeded. So then even more tried. And my parents, they had no intention to go. You say, this is our land, our this, and so on, and so on. It will just now, but later on it will improve. Everything is now confiscated, but it will improve. And they decided not to go. And one evening, Uncle Alexander, he was a Russian, he was my uncle. He was married to my mother's sister. They spoke all Russian at home. We spoke Yiddish, and her cousin across the street. Anyway, he came one night over and he told us a story that he got acquainted with a Russian officer. And of course I do not know how it happened, but anyway, the Russian officer advised him to go. He said, if you can't go, go, because it will there be an end of of still allowed to go to over the border. He said, and go quickly. And he said also, yeah, and Alexander said, yeah, my wife, she is Jewish. He was not, but she was. He said, go and say nothing. keep it to yourself. Never disclose anything. Just give the address from where you come, and that's it. But don't say. He said, it was Romanian. Say you are Romanian. You speak Romanian. He said, of course. My children are. You are Romanian. Do not disclose anything beyond. And he came with my father and Uncle Joseph, which is the nephew of the Zhukov that invaded Berlin at the Second World War. He was the nephew, and he was married to my aunt Alvina, Tante Alvina, Uncle Joseph, I would call him. So their parents and with Uncle Alexander, they encouraged each other to go. And they are actually Alexander Sokolov. And here I see it's with a W, but it was written with a V before. So I see my father, he put a W also on. So he made those changes. Because it was no more Sokolov, it was Sokolov. So anyway. So, and the Sokolovs, they left even before we did. I do not know how much, but they left, and so we left also.
Okay. Before we go into your, I assume you're about to go into your journey, but I'd like to step back a little bit, and can we talk a little bit about what it was like in Leova under the Russians? I know that people were disappearing, and you've told me stories and a run-in that you had. So if you could talk
under the Russian.
Under the Russians, during that time that you were that short time you were living under the
Okay.
Russians, what you saw.
Number one, everything was confiscated. A military in uniform, two soldiers and one officer. What the degree of officer I cannot recall. That's irrelevant, by the way. And they will check out how much domestic animals had, what kind. Everything was written in. How much land, how much housing, and what did you plant in all this? What language you speak at home, and all that gimmicks. And then, according to this, we had to give so much grain, so many sacks of grain. So, because I remember this was just during the harvest. There was the wheat, the corn, all that. It was a heavy harvest, the sunflower. So the threshing went on the, in our courtyard, and so there they could see the pile. So we could not put the grain usually was put in the attic, or like we said, we had that big room that was filled. But then it was all taken away. We had no grain, no corn, no nothing. One cow was taken right away. Several were taken. Probably to butcher them, or I do not know. I did not. And gave nothing. They didn't pay. They gave nothing in return. So that was parents were frustrated. By the way, they were killing all dogs, shooting them, because the dogs, dog barks when a stranger comes into the yard. So they were killing, and owners complaining, and the Russian soldier would say, "Shut up, or I kill you like your dog." Молчи, я зрелатель, как я собака. So it was very rough. People could not go out in the evening anymore. Whoever was caught after dark in the streets, he never came back home. So in that sense, it's somewhat creating a panic. We could not trust our neighbor or our children, or parents their children, or friends to friends. We had to be careful what we say. We could say, just in the games or so, but nothing beyond politics of that nature. Because parents were responsible of what their children will say. I think one individual, he he talked across the Prut, you know, shouting. We could hear each other shouting, and but from this side there was not a single word. He said, "Oh," and he said, he said, he demanded, well, "How is life with the Russian now?" You know, all things of that nature. But nobody has answered. No, nobody. They were too afraid. You know.
It was difficult. You couldn't just swim across.
Yeah, he could not respond. And these were, you know, maybe not acquaintance, but yeah, acquaintance, friends. You know, they were swimming or playing or working in the, you know, along the Prut. Both sides were gardens, grădini. I forgot them called in Romanian now. Grădinar, excuse me, grădinars. Yeah. And so they're talking to each other and working to each other, exchanging their help, whatever season it was, and so on.
Did you have any run-ins with the Russians yourself?
Well, yeah, one, well, more time, but one that was quite risky. It was during the walnut season. And you know, ravens, they go on walnuts and they pick the walnuts and then they carry them away and land somewhere and pick them and break them and eat what's inside. And I was going toward the Prut, that's beyond where the houses were. And I did not know, I was not watching what I was doing because I watching the ravens but coming with their nuts, they're loading, and as soon they load, I made a noise and chased them away and picked up the nuts. And I had my pockets filled with walnuts. And here come the Russian patrol. There were two, always by two. And I saw them. They were coming around that corner of the Prut, that is around the corner, and I was maybe quarter mile, you know, not that far, no, maybe quarter kilometer, whatever. And I saw them, and so I went toward the houses, but they cut me off and started, "Stoi!" So we had no choice. So they started questioning me and all kinds, and I showed them I was picking nuts, but I mean, talk to them. And so they took me with them and took me to Gardon. That was the Agencia, the area. And there they questioned me quite sometimes. I do not know how long, but from all kinds, what we were eating, what food we have hidden somewhere, do we have grains or flour, and do we have animals, we have stables underground, and all kind of stuff. You know, from a kid, they could get a lot of out because a youngster, he just talks, he answers whatever they were asking. So there I was a little bit scared somewhat. Yeah, they scared me quite well. And then they let me go. Yeah.
How long did they keep you for?
Well, I don't know.
Half an hour, an hour?
Oh no, at least 2 or more hours. At least 2 or more. Oh yeah, oh yes, yeah. Yeah, because I was sometimes at home. They were looking for me and could not find me. But I never told them where I was. I never told them. I said I was down at the Balta, and they said don't go at the Balta, you know. But I didn't tell them that that I was picked up already. I never said that at home. No. To show you that parents would have be concerned and might have said something, and they would have been in trouble, but because they let me go. But since they did not know that so I went by myself. So they are not responsible. Of course, they are responsible in one sense, but I was carried away by the ravens and the walnuts. So I never said that anything at home. All through the years, I didn't abstain.
Still.
Were they teaching in the schools differently when the Russians were there, or
But I did not, there were no teachers yet.
Okay.
So we left.
During the summer before school started?
School, time-wise, yes, it started, but the schools were not open. Because as I was told, that one teacher remained, Mr. Gidey. But Mr. Christoph, Mr. Alistar, and Madame Alistar, they all left. He was probably, they were all local, but they did not stay. I have never seen him, but that's what I heard. So I can just say what I heard. And so there were no teacher for, because of course it would have been Russia right away. Which would have been easy because children were, those that did not know it, it was, had all some knowledge of it, all, because it was what, 20 years only, or 19. So all the grown-ups, they were speaking Russian quite well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're close to, the tape could end in the next few minutes.
Okay. Maybe you can just quickly tell about some of the people who disappeared during that time under the Russians.
Yeah, one incident I should mention that the Bogdanovich, they were our neighbors, and he passed away, the Bogdanovich, but he had, I think, 3 sons, and the youngest, they were all much older than myself. He worked at the city hall for the Russian, when the Russian came, because they were Russian, he spoke Russian fluently, and the Romanian, they could use him for that. And one day, his 2 brothers were on the Romanian side, but one day, or one night I should say, one of his brothers did swim over the Prut, and he came over and gone into their garden and showed up at their house. And in the morning, the younger brother said to the older one, why don't you come with me? I am employed at the city hall, and there I will introduce you to all the employees and also to the officer that's in charge of the city hall in Leova. And of course, innocently, they went. And so he introduced all of them, and then introduced them to the officer, and the officer asked the younger brother to excuse himself. I don't know. He asked, or the younger brother had to excuse himself. Anyway, the 2 remained the 2, the older brother and the officer. And the younger brother came home and said, I had never seen him again. He had never seen. They got him out through the back door, and just disappeared.
What was the name?
Bogdanovich. That was the last name, but now the first names, I'm sure I knew them, but no. They had one daughter, which was, her name was Maka. She was a very nice lady. I mean, she was our age. She was the youngest. So we played with her games and so on. She played with us because we were boys more, and she played us girl, hitting the ball. She was doing quite well.
Okay. Stepping back to when you were leaving Leova, I know that your uncle, Alexander Sokolov,
Yes.
Sokolov
Yeah.
had talked to the Russian military officer, but I heard that, I think Heidi told me that people had gotten together in the town, had met and decided that this was best, if you could get out, that was the way to go.
Yes, yeah, I remember that quite well. And we heard a rumor that the boundary, the frontier was still open between Romania and Russia, down in Galatz. And my parents did not have in mind to move, not at all. He said, we have our land, we have our places, our houses, and certain animals, and we are from here, we stay here. And so are almost everybody else. Though one evening, my uncle Alexander, which lived across the street from us, he told us that he got acquainted with a Russian officer, because my uncle Alexander, he was a Russian. And that officer told him that if possible, that he get out of Moldova to go. He said there is still a chance that he'll be able to go, And my uncle, of course, he mentioned that his wife is a Jewish, and etc. and so on. But the officer said, go and say nothing. Never mention you are Romanian, and that's what you are, and that's all you have to say. And you go. But because if you stay, you will end up in Siberia. You will have no chance, you will not stay long free any much longer. And so Uncle Alexander come over one night and told us all that story. So, and some other friends and neighbors came and all at our house, and they talked. I do not know how long, because I went to bed. And from that day on, my parents decided to go, and so did Sokolovs also decided to go, and the Zhukov tried to go, and quite a few others. And I know the Sokolovs, Uncle Alexander's family, they left even before we did, because he was even more scared than we were. So.
Do you know what happened to them?
No.
No?
We were never together. They left before us, and
Never saw them again.
Yeah, personally, I never saw them. I heard that he lost his life, Uncle Alexander. His oldest daughter, which her name was Sarah, got very sick. I heard that, but I do not know the outcome. Then also one of their sons got sick also. Do not know the outcome. I think he died. I heard he died, but the daughter, I do not know what happened. Did she die or survived, or how long? So the rest of the family, no, we were never together again there. If we would have got out together, but we did not. You see, maybe they went by train all the way, but earlier, or by a different boat. I have no knowledge.